Good morning. How you doing? Just for the camera, can you tell me your name and what you doing here in Bermuda? Your program?
Yes, so my name is Dr. Jules Woolf. I'm an assistant professor and the sport lab director at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. And I'm here in Bermuda because I'm conducting research on behalf of the World Anti-Doping Agency. And that research looks at young elite athletes and their knowledge of anti-doping rules, their rights, and their responsibilities, and also looking at the sources of influence in their lives, such as coaches, parents, and their friends and teammates, and how they can potentially help influence them to compete clean.
So you talk about young elite. What is it? Where do we classify elite? Where does that classification come in as an elite young athlete?
So the way we're defining elite in our study is that they need to compete at a national or a high regional level and above. So targeting an event such as the Carifta Triathlon here in Bermuda actually does fit that criteria because we're going to have athletes who are representing their country from different nations across the Caribbean.
Have you found these type of studies have been informative to kids to know the do's and don'ts of it? What or is it punitive action that gets taken place? What just elaborate a little bit more in that. What are these studies actually for?
Yeah, so WADA's position is they want education to be a very strong pillar of their anti-doping prevention policy. And they want athletes' first experience about anti-doping to be education rather than detection, i.e., having a drug test. So it's very important that we educate athletes at a young age. The challenge is, and this isn't just in Bermuda or anywhere in the Caribbean, across the world, athletes' knowledge of anti-doping tends to be fairly low. They might know the basics, but they don't really know all the details, the rules and rights, and their responsibilities, particularly as they're coming up. And so it's important that they know this information so that they're prepared. And what we're trying to do with our study is rather than just have a basic measure of knowledge, what we've done is WADA has released a curriculum where they're trying to target different learning outcomes for their anti-doping education. And what we've done with our questionnaire is we've designed it so that we can assess different learning outcomes. And what that means is that when I go back to WADA, I should be able to tell them that some learning outcomes they're doing really well with anti-doping education, but there's others where perhaps they need more attention. And the benefit of that is it helps us have a much more targeted anti-doping education platform.
Yeah, I know what water is for our audience. Can you just
Yeah.
explain what water is for the audience?
Yeah. So WADA is the World Anti-Doping Agency, and they are the organization that was formed in 1999, and they are tasked with harmonizing the rules regarding anti-doping across the world, such that wherever you compete, you're going to be held to the same rules, and that way we have a fair, level playing field.
Uh, Me just reflecting on this subject, I can remember my daughter coming up in gymnastics, and she had to get a test, a drug test, and she was at 11 or 12 years old. A naive parent at that time, I'm like, you're gonna drug test my daughter? Like, what's this? And on the flip side of it, once she took the test, she gave me, Daddy, I can't do this, this is what I can't do. So it was an education. What are some of your findings in this program that you're running in the kids as far as their education? And what are some of the challenges?
Well, I think there's a couple things. So we haven't analyzed our data just yet, but what we're anticipating, similar to other studies that have been done across the world, is that athletes' knowledge generally is going to be fairly low. And that's just a standard, because it is a very complicated topic. So those are probably the main thing I'm expecting to find. The other thing that I'm curious about is to what extent different sources of influence affect the athletes. And what we've seen so far with another study that we're doing here, which involves interviews, is that athletes, they are influenced by their coaches, but we're basically seeing that the coaches aren't very knowledgeable as well, and so athletes are searching for knowledge, and yet one of their direct sources of knowledge, their coaches, isn't a very strong outlet. And again, this sort of reinforces other research we've seen elsewhere in the world. Um, Coaches want to play a role in anti-doping, but they feel that they have other responsibilities and duties, and anti-doping is just another thing for them to think about. And so that's another challenge. Is how do we tell the story of anti-doping, educate athletes in a manner that they're going to be receptive and they're going to remember the rules.
Yeah, I recently was just following a case in the UK where the boxer, I forgot his name, he got found with some female androgen things too. Are you familiar with that case that was in the UK?
I haven't heard of that one, no.
Yeah, because it was interesting. They don't know how it got there. Yeah. So do you find a lot of situations where athletes have things in their body that sometimes they don't know how it actually got there?
Yeah, and this is one of the challenges when it comes to anti-doping. One of the rules of anti-doping is called strict liability, which basically means that you're responsible for what's in your body, even if you didn't knowingly take it. And so we can see cases of unintentional doping. And often this comes from potentially from things such as contaminated products or supplements. And so athletes need to be aware of that so that they can do their due diligence, so that when they do decide to buy something from a pharmacy or a local supplement store, that they're making sure that what they're taking is not going to lead to a positive doping test.
Yeah, that's interesting. So tell me, how are you looking to roll out this program here in Bermuda? You said is a formal interview. Just give me the basics of how this is going to be rolled out in Bermuda, and what have you done so far in Bermuda?
Yeah, so the other study that we're doing, which is the interview study, we are trying to get young athletes around about the ages of 15, 16 to around about 19, so still in that adolescent age range. And we're interviewing them over Zoom. And what we're asking them to do is to talk to us about the conversations they have with their parents, their coaches, and their teammates on a range of subjects relating to sports. So we start talking about their conversations about training, and then their conversations about supplements, and then their conversations about performance-enhancing drugs. And what we're trying to get at here is to understand the types of conversations they have, because these conversations can give us some clues as to how attitudes are forming around these subject matter. And from there, that can then be used to help design intervention programs that can be tailored to appeal to the athletes and be more effective.
Do you eventually see this subject of anti-doping being something that coaches have to undertake a regular course in and update themselves? Is that the next step of it, so that coaches and parents become a little bit more aware of these things?
Yeah, so coaches may or may not be aware of this, but based on the WADA code, which is the rules for anti-doping, they do have responsibilities. And so I do see that as we go forward, there's going to be a greater expectation that coaches know this aspect. And when you think about it from a different perspective, this is sort of my opinion. We know the rules of the game. We know the size of the pitch, the weight of the balls, etc. Anti-doping is just another part of that rule book, and so coaches should have a knowledge. I'm not saying they have to have a detailed knowledge of pharmacology, but they should know some of the basic rules so they can advise their athletes to stay clean.
Yeah, in Bermuda we're starting to have this conversation about high performance, and obviously this type of subject is got to be included in wherever we go in high performance, knowing the do's and don'ts, and what you can take, what you can't take to get you to that level. So Youth of Sports definitely appreciate you being here on the island, and interacting with our athletes in this manner. I don't know if there's anything else you would like to add to. Feel free.
No, this has been great. I'm definitely enjoying the competitions here and seeing the high quality of athletes competing here on the island.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
John.